All right, everybody. Happy July. It's July 1st. It's lunchtime. And I figured why not sit around the table with Jake. It's Jake Malasek or Jake Malasek. How is it pronounced?
Malasek.
Jake Malasek from Barstool Sports and a huge UVA fan. We're going to get into his biography here in a minute. But as we always start, we're going to start with a Hokie haiku from our guy. Healthy dialogue. Not sure if it's possible. Can Jake prove me wrong? So who is Jake? Jake is a graduate from the University of Virginia, appreciates haikus, which I love.
Sure.
University of Virginia class of 2021. He now works for Barstool Sports as a social media and content creation stud, closely working with Barstool Gambling. Jersey Jerry, a legend, and often convincing Big Cat and PFT to gamble on the Who's. So, Jake, welcome to the show. How are you doing, my man?
What an intro. It's my probably my best intro I've ever gotten, so I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, how did we get here? That's probably what a lot of people are wondering as we start this podcast. So, look, last year, Commonwealth Cup, I've always said I hate that it seems that the chirps and it seems that the passion and it seems that the energy comes from one side of the table during football season. And Jake chimed in on the Commonwealth Cup. Honestly, he got in the paint. He stood in the paint. He immediately said, it's us versus you. That's it. And everybody jumped on him. But that's what makes it great. So props to you for actually coming on here. And I want to commend you. If Hokies fans are honest, this is what we want more of. Like, rivals pushing you is crucial to success. You look at Alabama, Auburn, you look at Michigan, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Florida, Miami, Duke, Carolina. Like, these games matter because people cares. So salute to you, Jake, for caring. I really appreciate it. But do you get that consensus? Why do you think that there's a lack of care, and what led you to pick up the baton, pick up the flag, and wave it?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that the record kind of probably is a big part of that. I think if it was a little bit more of an even battle the past 20 years, there'd probably be more people on our side kind of chiming in. But, it is tough to kind of, stick your flag in the ground and then lose by 40 in your home field. Like, it doesn't make people excited for the next year. But, like, I'd rather do that and lose than not do it. And, like, if you win, it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
So, like,
it cares as much as you want it to care. It cares as much as you want it to care. So before we talk, we're going to talk about UVA. We're going to talk about Barstool, but we'll dive right into the Tech UVA stuff. So first of all, what led you to attending UVA? When did you get there? What was your experience like? Tell me a little bit about your background.
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in Virginia. So I grew up around DC and McLean. I went to boarding school for high school. Went to go play hockey and lacrosse up there in New Hampshire. Thought that's kind of what I wanted to do in college, the whole thing. So I played Division III at Trinity College for a year. Didn't really love it. The lacrosse was fine, but like the school was, 2,000 people, a little small, kind of felt like I was back in high school a little bit. And my parents both went to Darden, which is the UVA business school back in the 90s. So we were always kind of UVA people. And, they moved to Charlottesville when I was 15. So that was probably 2014, we went to Charlottesville. So, I was living there for a couple of years beforehand. And I always kind of had this thing about maybe I wanted to go to UVA. So I applied my freshman year of college to transfer, got in, and then, kind of a no-brainer. It was kind of my best option academically and as a school. So went sophomore year and kind of had the best 3 years and graduated, and now I'm doing this. But UVA was always kind of in the back of my mind. And then I finally pulled the trigger to go my second year, and glad I did.
So you actually went to UVA, graduated from UVA, and if you had started a year later, it'd be the same thing. But you missed out on Virginia Tech's last trip to Charlottesville. Virginia Tech has not played a game in Charlottesville since 2018. Virginia Tech wins that game in overtime. And then 2019, I'm assuming that you were at school there.
I was.
The magical UVA season. It was the first time that UVA won 9 games since 2007. It was their first win over Virginia Tech since 2004. So paint the picture for me as a UVA fan going through that. And you had been following UVA for a while, and you mentioned over the last 20 years, but that year was incredible. You had Virginia Tech, who had an extremely slow start to the year. They catch fire. And then it was almost, from our standpoint, it almost became like an earned right to beat UVA every single year. And you guys completely, I don't want to say derail the year because the team still finishes with a good record, but handle business. Bryce Perkins is an absolute celebrity icon in UVA. So what was that 2019 season like for you?
Yeah, I think that also kind of skewed my view of UVA football a little bit. Like it being my first year on at UVA, kind of watching them go 9-3 and play for an AC title and the whole thing. And I think that might be why I'm forever skewed. Like we could be, a 10-win team every year. No, that year was awesome. I mean, I went to a bunch of games. I was front row behind the end zone for the 2019 Tech game. The party afterwards was at my fraternity house. There were like 6 of us in town because it was Thanksgiving. So like everybody from school just came. We had no control over the situation. It was unbelievable. I tell people that night was more fun than the basketball national championship night.
Really?
Or at least for me, like it was probably the best night I've ever had was that night. I mean, they brought the cup. We were all drinking out of the cup. Like it was one of those like insane Blue Mountain State, like goat house parties kind of, where everybody was having a great time. No, but that season was awesome. I mean, Bryce Perkins had like an insane college football season, And I mean, we've had that, like Brennan Armstrong 2021 had sort of the same sort of statistical crazy throwing for 400 yards a game, but like you go 6-6, doesn't really matter. So that, 9-3 playing for a conference title, the whole thing was, it probably ruined me, honestly, for the foreseeable future. Cause like, that's kind of what I like hopefully expect every year. And, we're going 4-8 and the whole thing, but no, that was a special season. And a lot of things for UVA went right that year. So that, again, it kind of broke my brain a little bit on how things are supposed to go.
So before we talk about the rivalry, I think I would just like to co-author a message with you here. And I want to see if you agree. There's zero reason we shouldn't have more banter. From the Virginia Tech side, like if anyone does banter, the worst comeback from UVA fans is it's rent-free. Like, yes, if we beat you, we are going to talk about it, and that's how it's going to go. My guy, I don't want to call him my guy because we're not friends, especially on his side. But the rent-free thing, OG who? Anytime Virginia is mentioned in any regard, it's rent-free. And yes, I want to live in a world where my in-state rival, who we play every year at the end of the season, that game matters to some capacity.
Right.
And if that is talking about it for 364 days leading up into the game, and then we play the game, and then what happens, then we look to next year, let's get to that point. I think if Tech fans are being honest, having that game be competitive, having the two programs be better than where they are. Look, Tech historically has to be better than where they are, and I think they're trending in the right direction. UVA has had great years in the early 2000s and the late 90s. Like, we want both of these programs to be good. We don't want this to be, hey, the Commonwealth Cup, catch it on, Comedy Network at like noon. It's going to be on. Maybe you'll get it if you're in the region. Like, chime in. That's what makes the rivalry great. Can you co-author that? I'm going to have to hold you accountable to get in your UVA.
No, totally. And like you brought him up, OG, who is my guy. And he's very much ride or die UVA and is in the trenches and the whole thing. And there are a lot of guys on Twitter like him. And I obviously appreciate those guys, but like the rent-free stuff, like I do feel like I think about you guys a lot, and I hope you guys think about us a lot because that's kind of the whole point of this, right? Like Michigan and Ohio State, like they think about each other quite a bit because it matters, right? So again, I'd rather have it matter and have people kind of, go back and forth. So I'm with you on that. Like I'll 100% co-sign that with you.
And also from the Tech side, if we get any types of chirps, you can't say, hey, it's embarrassing that you guys don't show up to games. And then in the same breath, when somebody does try to wave the UVA flag, it's like, little bro, shut up. You haven't won in forever. Like, so you want them to go to the games, but you don't want them to talk about it. It's just at the end of the day, some fun chirps. That's all that it needs to be.
Yeah, totally.
And I think the coolest parallel is basketball. I'll be the first to say UVA historically, better basketball program, national championships, done an incredible job. But at no point in time are UVA fans going to storm the court at Castle Coliseum. And at no point in time are you going to hear Let's Go Hokies chants overpowering Let's Go Who's chants in JPJ. But that's what's made that rivalry so special. You see the UVA Virginia Tech game on primetime television on ESPN, not because they're two blue bloods going at it, but I mean, it's been 4-4 the last 8 matchups. Virginia Tech hasn't won in Charlottesville since 2018. UVA hasn't won in Blacksburg since 2020, which you could call it a Mickey Mouse year, but they did win that year before in 2019. So, we just got to transfer that over to football. There's too much greatness sitting on the table for us to just leave it there. The team has to be better, both teams.
I agree. Well, I mean, you guys are going to be great this year, I think. I think this is going to be a really good year. I don't know if you saw the new facilities just opened in Charlottesville.
Yep.
Like that, I hope is going to be kind of a catalyst for the team getting better and better. I'm excited to see kind of how this goes. I think this is kind of a make or break year for UVA's current program of how we sit right now. So, I mean, probably six wins is probably kind of the benchmark of where I hope we're at this year, kind of moving forward. But yeah, I agree. I mean, listen, if both teams can go into that game 10-1, that'd be,
or some sort of stakes.
Everybody would root for that. You know what I mean?
Some sort of stakes. And I think we've gotten that a couple times. They've gone into the game where bowl eligibility is on the table for one team, or a trip to the. I mean, it was basically a play-in for the ACC title game in 2019, and that was fun. That's when it mattered.
That was the best.
So it's just we need to get back there. So
even the Iron Bowl, like Auburn, half the time it doesn't matter for them.
No, but they show up,
right?
But they're there and they're talking trash.
They want to win. Like that's kind of what we're missing a little bit. And yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I wish that game was on par with the other ones that we got in college football.
So on the dig side, what I want to do is I wrote down some digs that come from UVA folks that I'm going to grade as being like, hey, that's a sick burn, like good one. And then ones that are just whack. And we can, I don't know if you have any that you can think of, but I'll give you a couple. Yep. So we'll start with the good ones. Like good dig from UVA, Virginia Tech is a cow town. I mean, if you're watching this on YouTube, you look at Jake, he's well-groomed, no mustache. My hair's all over the place. I got a mustache. There's clearly a cultural difference. But the towns compared, if I'm going to grab a sandwich, it's probably going to be greasy. It's probably going to be unhealthy, and it's probably going to be like $6. If you're at UVA with your parents, you have a plenty of options. You want to go get cocktails. You want to go get an old fashioned. You want to go get a nice steak. You got some options there. So the Cowtown stuff, that is accurate. We do love it, but it is a good dig.
Okay.
Do you have one that is a good dig coming from Tech people?
Let's see. I wish I had prepared some notes for this.
I'll give you another one that's a good one that comes from you guys.
Go ahead.
People freak out when they bring up the national title thing. Look, Virginia Tech is one of 4 teams that has not won a national title. Like, completely fair dig. If the roles were reversed,
4? I thought it was 3.
It might be 3. It might actually be 3.
I think I was even trying to inflate the numbers. Going to the Big 12. I think it used to be 2.
So I was trying to inflate the numbers there. But yes, that is a dig. If you all hadn't won a national championship, guess who'd be hearing it? You guys would be hearing it all day. It is a completely fair dig, 100% approved, fair dig.
No, I also like when the Yankees do it, I feel like it's a little bit bullshit. You know, because they haven't won most of them in this, century.
Right.
And I hate that as well, where it's like, 27 rings, but half of them were from before World War II. So those are kind of whatever. But yeah, I mean, I hope you guys get there one day. Like, it's honestly, like, it's nice to have one,
I'm sure it's awesome.
I put a tweet out a couple of years ago when Mississippi State. So it was Mississippi State, Kansas State, and you guys were the 3 teams. Mississippi State won their national championship in basketball. And this is prior to UCF joining the Big 12. So it was 3 Power 5 teams, and then it was just 2. And I put a tweet out. It was like the Thanos looking over the sunset. And I was like, me when Kansas State wins their first national title. So yeah, I mean, listen, it's a race. It's a race to last, and I'm hoping it's not you guys, but it would be probably the funniest day in UVA Twitter.
And we're gonna hear about it if it is us to last. So here's to look. I think the closest that we are is maybe wrestling. I mean, baseball has a couple of heartbeats every once in a while, so we need to make it happen. We have won a couple like dairy judging national championships,
agriculture, bass fishing. Yeah, right.
So we have those, but they're not recognized, and that's fair. So
what do you think about that trophy case with the reserve for national championship?
So it's made fun of a lot now, and it was a recruiting tactic. Like when I visited Virginia Tech, like there was a dedicated time where you would walk over with your recruiter, and it would be, hey, here's the trophy case where we plan to put our national title trophy when we win one. Now, is it great to set goals? Absolutely. Totally. I love setting goals. I personally don't have like the YouTube when we go platinum like hung up behind me. So maybe that's an internal motivator. I don't know if that needed to be an external motivator. Right. So that was my only critique. Okay. So but that also 100% fair gripe without a doubt. If you all were planting your flag on something and it didn't come true, we would be poking at that too. Some of the worst digs, I already said the rent-free thing. That's tough. The rent-free thing, we got to retire that. That needs to be sunsetted.
It just kind of makes a little bit no sense in my brain as well.
Yeah. It makes no sense. Now, the other one is the Smarty Pants stuff. So UVA is a tremendous school. It is a public Ivy. I think the conversation sometimes gets into like Virginia Tech is a community college versus UVA is Harvard University. Now, the gap is not that wide. And also, it does drive me crazy when I can't help myself sometimes. Maybe somebody will put a chirp out. I'm like, let me check out their LinkedIn. And then this person may have not gone to UVA. So I think it's a little weird touting the academic supremacy of a school that you didn't graduate from.
Yeah.
Little odd behavior. But those are really my only gripes. Cowtown national title chirp, go for it. 100% should run with that, no doubt. The worst digs, rent-free, Smarty Pants. I think we can put those to rest.
Yeah. I do like the sometimes they'll send like the pictures of like the 2012 Vineyard Vines outfits. Those are good. I do enjoy those because listen, like as much as I wish it wasn't the case, it's kind of the case of a lot of people were wearing that out on a Saturday. So myself included, back when I was in college, I was like, all right, this is, I guess, what we're wearing to the parties is polo and khaki shorts. Sue me. That was kind of the vibe. So those are fun. That's a little bit of the Ole Miss, Mississippi State attitude down there too, where it's, the Oxford shirts and Mississippi State's in their overalls.
So I actually have to point this out, and this was actually brought. So my dad went to Ole Miss. I love Ole Miss. And Darby Taylor made a really good point. She said, I don't understand why you're an Ole Miss fan because Ole Miss culture is actually much similar to UVA than Mississippi State is to Virginia Tech. And that is absolutely true. Totally. If you go ahead now, again, if you want to get into academics, talk about it a little bit. My pops, if you're listening, I do apologize, but he'd be the first to admit UVA, Ole Miss, a little bit of a different territory, but there is the Sperry topsiders are laid out right by the door. They've probably never been washed. Disgusting. There's definitely the outfit. But I will say at Tech, it's not like everybody's going out in cowboy boots and, Wrangler jeans. We're not out here like hoarding cattle. Maybe some people are, but I digress. So some things that we might have missed that come from the Tech side. Look, Jake, I think some of the jokes write themselves. You didn't do it earlier. I was waiting for you to say I was on grounds when we beat Virginia Tech. Those, that's low-hanging fruit that I think is fair. So what is
the gripe with that though? Is that just because we have our own thing?
It's just too much. It's too much.
As an outsider, it's viewed as pretentious. I kind of get that, but also it's just an old thing that
But it doesn't stop. But it doesn't stop there. You have I'm a third year. I'm a fourth year, and then the other one.
Why? It's because learning never stops, brother. Come on.
So we were talking about the. We had some folks that write for us that were like, hey, like let's get some data points on the SAT scores and graduating rates and everything else. And somebody was like, UVA doesn't have a business school. I was like, that's not true. There's no way they don't have a business school. You do have a business school, but it's called the School of Commerce. What is that? Like, what?
Yeah, no, I mean, listen. But also, there's got to be a lot of schools that have their own sort of jargon. I don't think that ours is like egregiously crazy.
The School of Greater Business would be worse. Something like that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like
the School of Deal Making. Yeah.
Is it a little pretentious to have your own sort of stuff? Sure. But like it could be, I feel like it could be a lot worse.
This is true. This is true. So moving into rapid fire here, we're going to get your Mount Who-more. So who are the top 4 Virginia people? They don't have to be sports related to ever do it. Who are the top 4?
Oh, wow. Ever. All right, let's think. Ralph Sampson, obviously, number 1. I think he's got to be on everybody's list, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most dominant college basketball players to ever live.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he won Player of the Year like every year.
Yep.
Whatever. I'm going to throw – so it doesn't have to be athletes. It could be anybody.
Nope. Anybody.
Tony Bennett will go on that list.
Good-looking guy. Unbelievable.
Dude. Won us our championship.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that I was very worried about the basketball program after this season. I do think it's going to sort of bounce back a little bit in the coming years. So that's 2. I'll put George Welsh on there.
Okay.
At 3. I just think that he was like sort of the football coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish it was, I wish Bronco was kind of still here and doing his thing. But here we are. And then
I mean, there's a shoe in at the last spot.
I'm trying to think of because I don't want to miss anybody, but I also
You're on the verge of missing somebody.
You have somebody in mind that you are adamantly this has to be on the list?
He's been on this show.
Oh wow. Damn, all right, well give me a hint. I don't want to get your guy wrong.
His number was retired before Virginia played Virginia Tech. He was an active player on UVA's roster, and his number was retired before they played the game, and Tech did win.
Wow.
He is also a fellow podcaster.
I mean, you think he's a shoe-in UVA Mount Rushmore guy of anybody that's ever gone there?
Maybe not of anyone that's ever gone there, but in the sports realm, he's
sure. Okay, I mean, yeah, if you want to throw Chris Long on the Mount Rushmore, sure. Yeah. I was kind of going through the Tina Feys and the Katie Couric's.
Okay.
And all those. I wanted to make sure I was kind of branching out a little bit.
Okay.
But he's definitely on my four of athletes.
Absolutely. Sure. Okay. All right. So you were trying to venture off of the sports path.
I was trying to get a little creative with my four. But yeah, no, I mean, Chris Long, first of all, St. Anne's Belfield guy through and through. Mm-hmm. Lives in Charlottesville. I know his brother Kyle pretty well. Mm-hmm. He comes to Barstool a bunch, so we shoot the shit about Charlottesville and the whole thing. And the Longs are awesome. Come from a long line, obviously, of football minds. But yeah, I mean, I'm in for that. I'm down for Chris Long to be on there. I honestly was going to throw maybe Connor Schellenberger on that list.
Not a bad move.
Call me crazy.
Wouldn't hold it against you.
Call me crazy. But, no, I like Chris Long at the 4. That's nice.
You already kind of answered this, but what is your best sports-related memory? Is it the 2019 game? Is it the national championship? What is your best sports-related memory?
I think if I had to rank them, it would probably be Tech game 2019 at 1. Mm-hmm. Just based on my entire 24 hours, not even maybe the whole week, honestly, of that week was crazy. And that was right as I first started being Barstool UVA. So I was kind of really in the weeds as my first sort of introduction to the rivalry. Then there was, I guess the national championship would be 2. It's like one of the craziest, 3-4 game stretches that anyone's ever witnessed. And the fact
I've said it, and I'm probably self-incriminating to a level here. I loved that UVA team. I wasn't actively rooting for you guys to win.
They were sick.
Tony Bennett is undislikable. Like, you cannot dislike Tony Bennett. I mean, Kyle Guy is, and again, probably going to catch some flack here. I love me some Hunter Couture. He's kind of Hunter Couture with a nice haircut and a little bit more of a good jovial jerk. So a lot of love for that team. Listen, and Sam Hauser, was Sam Hauser on that team?
No, he was a couple years later.
He did win a finals with the Boston Celtics, though.
That was like the Diakites, the Braxton Keys of the world. Those, but that was unreal. I mean, listen, people talk about the Duke guys and how they hate the Duke guys. Like, UVA's had a couple guys where, if you're not a UVA fan, I totally get how you could hate like Kyle Guy with the man bun, Kihei Clark. Like, I totally understand if you're not a Cavaliers fan, how you would hate those guys. But they've treated me very well, so I appreciate them and I love them to death. And then I guess my 3 of sporting event memories would probably be the 2021 lacrosse title.
Okay.
Because I was with the team for the year. That was kind of tail end of COVID at school. And then I ended up working right after graduation in New York. So I just drove up to Hartford and was at the national championship game when we won. Mm-hmm. And that was, an unreal kind of bookend to my my UVA 3 years, was kind of watching the boys right off into the sunset, beating Maryland in like one of the craziest games I've ever watched. Mm-hmm. And then, I just became like an adult after that. So that was kind of a weird weekend as well. But no, those were probably the top 3, honestly.
It would be tough to do this, but I've always asked why Virginia Tech doesn't have a lacrosse team. But if you were to just spin one up, you're probably looking at some pretty poor final score results. If you were to just spin up a lacrosse team in the ACC, taking on North Carolina, taking on UVA,
especially because I don't think Virginia Tech is like a destination for lacrosse recruits.
You'd have to go get them. You'd have to go get them.
Like, I don't think especially now, because like a lot of these kids want to go to like Harvard, and it's like, dude, like, even UVA is like competing with the Ivies. Like, Lacrosse is not the sport you want to get into if you're you're much better off recruiting football players than lacrosse players at Virginia Tech, you know?
Worst sports related memory. You gave 3 for best. Give me 3 worst.
3 worst sports memories. All right. So, I mean, any Virginia Tech game besides the 2019 one, I guess we'll lump that into just one as just like watching, I remember, I guess the COVID year in Blacksburg with no fans. I watched with my buddy and we were just like, oh my God, like that. Then there was the pass to the lineman the year later. And then there was the last year was 55-17. I mean, so there's been a couple of those. So I'll just lump that as one.
I'd be remiss not to ask how, like, I can't even relate to this. The field storming from a bias standpoint is awesome. I'm like, wow, that's awesome. But there's a part of my heart, and I feel like a part of everybody's hearts is like, I can't believe that this not only happened once, but it's happening again. Like, how does this stop? Like that has to stop at a certain standpoint. Like, I don't know, Jake, can you start like a Salvation Army fund where they can rent out like 1,000 police officers to not let anyone on the field? Can you go down there with the battle axe?
There's a very simple solution to this problem, and it's to just win the game. If you win the game, they won't do it. I think that's a pretty easy way to fix it. That's a lot easier than hiring 1,000 cops to kind of protect the field. Just win the football game.
They need to get you down there with a battle axe or something. They need to put you down there and
defend the wall down there.
There's got to be got to be something that's done.
I'll lump the past couple of years of Tech games into kind of one grouping.
Yep.
Man, worst sport memory. There was a week, I guess, like last year where UVA Lacrosse was up by 2 with like 2 minutes left against Notre Dame in the Final Four. They blew that. And then UVA baseball in the College World Series was up by like 2 runs on Florida in the 9th inning, and they blew that game. And that was in like the span of a couple of days. Like that sucked ass. So I'm going to lump that weekend as number 2. I guess.
I mean, it's interesting. You kind of have to pick between the losing in the first round as a 1 seed, but also I don't know if it was more painful to lose with Kihei's last game the way that game was lost.
The
like
Furman
both
game
of those
was
are tough.
Okay, I'm going to put that in there too. That's a good pull. The Furman game, because we were doing a stream at a casino, and that was like the first game of the day. So everybody was like, usually with those streams, the later into the day you go, people start to get a little tired. They lose a couple, bets here and there, and they've gotten a little less into it. Furman was like 12-10, first tip of the day, March Madness, first day. Everybody's like pumped to be there. I'm in my jersey like an asshole. Like,
I mean, and not to mention, like, and I was with you guys, like UVA belonged in the tournament. Like when they lost that game, everyone's like, see, UVA didn't belong in the tournament. UVA gets in the tournament. They play against Furman. And then for Kihei Clark to end his incredibly long and incredibly accoladed career.
I said it's the one guy. If you had told me before the game that somebody will get the inbounds with all of this sort of I think we had like a timeout. We had a couple fouls there were so many options. I said, if you told me that somebody was to do what he did, but not tell me who it was and that I had to guess, his name would have been last on my list of people. So that was kind of, shocking. I got absolutely clowned for that for about a week at work.
Well, Jake, what's tough about that too is you don't get the crush your day video on your timeline of the 1 seed game because there wasn't a moment, it wasn't a buzzer beater, it wasn't a crazy finish. For us, we always get the Braxton Miller spin move. Like that is on Twitter. I think I come across that like once a month. I come across it. Unbelievable spin move, incredible. Yeah, so you didn't get that from the 1 seed loss, but that final shot from Furman, I feel like is on the timeline over and over and over and over again.
It's up there a lot. And I have to post it a bunch too, because it's like, remember this? And I'm like, I sure do. I mean, it was that. Then there was the Colorado State game this year. Yeah. There was the NC State game this year. People also, I tried to make that a spin zone this year. Like America was welcome. They should be thanking us for NC State this year because without us fucking that up, you don't get DJ Burns in the Final Four. You don't get that whole magical run. So honestly, America, you're welcome for that, by the way. So there's definitely been some shitty fucking moments, but again, I said this earlier this year as well. It's like when you lose in the Final Four and the College World Series, kind of the ways that we did, and that's like a disappointment. Like I'd rather lose in the Final Four than not be there,
110%. I always get in this argument. It's fun to at least be in the conversation because and you can fall on the sword of having the entire country point at you, but at least you're in a position to have the entire country.
Right. People are like, I get to watch my team in like the big stage. Only one team can win.
Yep.
Like everybody else has to lose. So sometimes it's in a tough way, but like it's very hard to win the whole thing every time.
So how are you? I guess walk me through having Dave and Big Cat bet on UVA in the Commonwealth Cup, because I mean, I looked at that line and I honestly really didn't know what to expect. I expected to win, but I was like, honestly, I don't really know what to expect of this game. We just played NC State, came back at the end, but they handled us in the first half. They got a dynamic quarterback situation who hasn't really lived up to it, but he's hit or miss. I mean, he can go out there and throw 5 touchdowns. I have no idea. So What was the sell to Dave and Big Cat? And then what was the repercussions?
What's funny is I wasn't even trying to sell anybody on the thing. I basically was going into this. I was listening to all the boys. Like even Clandry was like, when we win, I was like, all right, like, fuck it. I'm in. Like, I believe. And people were upset at him for saying that. I want my quarterback talking like that.
Yeah.
Why would you want your quarterback to be like, oh, maybe, I don't know. Like, we might lose. I don't know. I don't want that shit. Even Tony Elliott was like, yeah, like that was kind of stupid. I was like, dude, you want to go in thinking, we're going to win. Like I want that mentality.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I kind of was just tweeting it like a motherfucker, basically being like, like I love this.
Yeah.
Like even the line, I think we were +1. Like it was pretty even.
Yep.
That made me love it even more because like I feel like Vegas should kind of know that you guys win every time.
Know? Yeah.
Right. So I was like, that's weird. Like, okay, maybe I'm down. And then it was over in 5 minutes. Like that game was never had a chance. So again, another tough week for me that week, like that happens.
Yep.
Again, I'll be doing the same thing every year.
I hope so, Jake.
Never waver.
Don't let the bastards get you down.
No, never.
Again, it's what makes it special. It's what makes it matters. Look, when Virginia Tech, I'm trying to think of a good example. I mean, literally anytime when I jumped on the women's basketball bandwagon, which wasn't a team that was just like, oh, I guess they're pretty good. Like they were awesome. I didn't care who we were playing. I was talking smack to everybody that we were playing, and that's what you want to do. So, and you got to fall on the sword sometimes when it doesn't work out. So last one here for you in rapid fire. If you are the president of UVA, President Malasek, what are the 3 changes that you make? This can be to anything. It could be about, you could update the grounds. You could change facilities. You can invest a ton into one sport. What are you changing?
Okay. So I thought about this a little bit.
Okay.
Just in my free time, because I have nothing else to do.
Sure.
Athletes don't have to go to school. Okay. I don't understand why UVA feels like we're above what other schools do. Like if the football players don't want to go to class, who cares? I don't care. Let them not go to school. That should be a major selling point of UVA is like, come get this cool degree, but like you don't really have to do it. If you guys want to win 10 games every year, don't go to class. I don't care. UNC was doing it. Everybody else is doing it. Like, I don't give a shit personally.
Yeah.
2, I'm throwing out the new logo. I'm going back to what we used to have. I'm going back to the cool jerseys that all the sports used to have. I think the retro stuff looks great. Basketball should go back to their sort of, Ralph Sampson era jerseys. I think what we have right now looks like dog shit. That's I guess this is more athletic director than president, but whatever.
I didn't understand the rebrand. Like you came out with 2 logos and I was like, what is your primary logo? It didn't, I don't understand.
The rebrand was maybe the biggest waste of money UVA's ever spent anything on, especially like the caveman. This thing is
stuff.
I don't like it. I mean, they've done a good job with the facility upgrades. They're doing a good stuff with that. I guess my third act as president. Oof, it's fun. I enjoy it. I think that also like I would probably incentivize students to kind of come to more stuff.
Yeah.
Like I don't think that we do a good job as a university of like having like nights where it's like if you like like
80s night, retro
yeah,
night.
like something
Yeah.
where it's like football. I don't know where Lane Stadium is. I've never really been to the athletic
Jake, we're
area.
getting you down there this fall. This
No, I know.
November.
I would love to go because I've never been. I did live in Blacksburg for a summer, but I didn't really venture around.
Why?
So I interned, I guess, summer after sophomore year of college. Probably was the right, maybe junior, sophomore. I was there. I worked for the WDBJ7 news station.
Okay.
So I would commute from Blacksburg to Roanoke because my buddy had like a spot in Blacksburg.
Okay.
But I lived there I went to like Tots, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like I did the
Yeah.
summer in Blacksburg, but I didn't really get to kind of, check out the campus as much as I probably should have. But like UVA's football stadium, like you've been.
Yeah.
Like, it's in the middle of the
Multiple
dorms.
times.
Middle of the dorms. Like the
Yeah.
fact that there isn't everybody there is shocking. And I feel like if you kind of incentivize students to kind of show up, because like again, they would rather go to the frats at noon on a Saturday than the football game, which is a problem.
Yeah.
So that I feel like that would have to be a big, I don't know what it would be exactly, but I would probably do like dollar beers or something. I don't know, something, that kids want to do to kind of get their asses in the seats because they go to basketball games.
Because I'll say like 2019, and granted, there were a ton of tech people there, but the environment, I was talking about Pat with this a couple months ago, is the 2019 environment for the Commonwealth Cup was loud as shit. Like it was awesome. An awesome in college football environment. And again, like winning is going to incentivize you to a point, but it's somebody has to buy in first, and it's going to help the football team a lot to get to buy in if there's some sort of support. So I'm with you on that 100%. I think, some of the overhead shots, and I don't really think it's a UVA specific problem. Like you look at some of the other teams in the ACC, it's a real issue. Like Duke, you get an overhead shot of a Duke football game, like a set 8:00 game. It's not always great unless they're playing Florida State. North Carolina is the same way. We crush North. They don't get nearly the much bad publicity that you all get on the fan attendance. It's far worse. Or I don't want to say far worse.
You saw what happened to Duke this year. Like when you're good, people go.
People show up. So
it is kind of one of those like
right.
You're right. Like someone's got to kind of cave a little bit first, but yeah, I mean, I think that also kind of comes with winning, and that's I hope we're on the right track. I kind of have no idea, to be honest.
Yeah.
With the current coaching staff, but I mean, again, like this year will be very telling of kind of where we're at. Year 3. Ugh.
So letters from the lunch pail. We got a ton of questions. Can you just explain? Because this is how it works. Like if I do a podcast with somebody from another fan base and they find one thing and they have no insight into it, then you're that guy with that thing. So can you explain me the soap thing? Like if somebody doesn't even know what it is.
Right. So we at Barstool, we were just chatting one day up in the office. This is like not even on camera or anything. We were just kind of shooting the shit up in the office. And somebody was talking about, what kind of body wash they use. And I basically was like, I don't even use it.
Okay.
I haven't used it in years.
Body wash.
And I used to use it. I used to use it in high school. And then it was my skin was horrible.
Right.
Like all over my body. It was kind of whatever. And then I was like, you know what? Fuck it. And I stopped using it. And I've been great ever since. So I kind of thought that as like, okay, I have a clear sort of control variable, and then the experiment was done, and the experiment turned out and the hypothesis was correct. So I've just kind of lived my life. I've never gotten a smell complaint. I've never gotten a dirty whatever.
Right.
So I just figured it was like whatever. Apparently that's like the craziest thing anyone's ever said ever.
Are you using like, let's just use an extreme example. You jump in a pile of mud and you're covered head to toe in dirt. Like, how are you just rubbing it off?
If I have like a serious issue, if I'm like covered in like shit, like I have a dog, like if my hands are covered in dog shit, I will soap them up.
Okay.
Because like that's fucking gross. Like if I'm just going to work and coming home, like I didn't really do anything today.
You're just watering it.
Yeah, I'll just rinse off. Like that's kind of, and it's also like I for my hair, I use shampoo and conditioner like once a month.
Jake, I'm not going to give you any feedback on the hair. The hair looks great. I mean, I'm not going to give you any hair feedback. I also think it's crazy when people shampoo every time they shower. I probably shampoo maybe once a week. Maybe.
Right. Like I'm a very staunch, like the water will do its thing. I think I told people this, like if you're going to try it, which I recommend because my body feels great now. You kind of have to break through like there's a phase when you first start. If you are a consistent body wash or shampoo user,
right,
you have to kind of break through. There's like a 2-3 week period where you're going to feel real gross. Once you break through that, it feels great. And also, like, people were like, oh, if you get dry skin because of the body wash, like add a lotion or something. Like, I don't want to add extra steps.
Yeah.
Like, if I can just cut it all out and feel good. I still wear deodorant, which is probably bad for you and it gives you cancer, but like whatever.
Yeah.
I'll take the cancer on the deodorant.
Right.
But no, I mean, I just find it to be a lack of things has made my body feel much better. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Was there something that that led you to doing it? Like, I'm sure people in the comments will be stop listening to this podcast. I mean, I'm a Joe Rogan listener. I mean, did you come across some sort of epiphany, or did you just pick up the Irish Spring and you were like, I'm done, it's over?
Yeah. No, I've definitely heard of the no shampoo method.
Mm-hmm.
So like that definitely was like something that kind of piqued my interest on the whole thing. And then it was really just like a constant, like, just like, I'm a little like, what the fuck is like, we're kind of living like that. And I was like, one day I was like, all right, like, I'm just going to stop. Like, I used to be a big Head and Shoulders user. I had terrible dandruff. The minute I stopped using it, like, it went away. So like, that's one of those where it's like, maybe they're causing more problems than they're solving. But yeah, the soap thing was like, that's been a big hot, like, I still get comments all the time about that, which I find like very funny. People DM me, be like, you're fucking gross, man.
Yeah, well,
like,
come smell me. That's what
right. They did a whole smell test on the yak, and they were like, oh, he smells good. Dare I say good? I was like, yeah, like, I don't know what to tell you guys. Like,
and this has been going on for how long?
I haven't used it in like 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah, no, like, I've been living my life. No one seems to have noticed.
So, so you jump in a chlorine pool, you jump in a lake, you're rinsing off with water, calling it a day.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you can make the argument. Thomas Jefferson, Sacagawea, Pocahontas, they didn't use soap either, and they
right. Well, they also were dying of like dysentery. But like for me, I have all this modern medicine. You know, water's clean and the whole thing. Like, I'm good. You know, I feel good.
Okay. All right. I don't know if I'll join you, but I'm going to do some research, Jake. I'm going to jump in.
Each their own. You know, it works for me. It may not work for you, but that's kind of how I live my life.
So other questions that we got from folks, Pete McGee, can you name something that you love about UVA that isn't related to sports?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously, like, the campus, the grounds, beautiful. Charlottesville as a whole is beautiful. I loved living there. I really did. And like, the people there were great. I loved the UVA people. And I'm sure that's how you feel about the Tech people. Like, it's just like, those are your people.
Yep.
They get you. You know, I still have some of my best friends are from UVA. Like, I have 5 of them coming to Chicago in 2 days to hang out for the weekend. So yeah, like, I'll have those guys forever. They'll be my best friends forever. Like, it's just like it's a cool, like, mix, I thought, of people, especially coming from a different college. Like, you really get to see, like, UVA students are kind of all over the map in terms of like personalities, but they're all sort of the same, not ideology. I don't know what the word I'm looking for. They all sort of have the same mentality, which is like, we're here to, like, you know, do school and like do it well, but at the same time, like, we're here to have a good time. And nobody took it way too seriously, which I found very, very nice. Especially as a guy who wasn't big into academics. Yeah. Like, it was definitely a fun time. And,
was your frat the one that did? I remember I went to UVA. I went actually for the college game day in 2018 where we played you guys. And I remember we went to lunch or brunch or something. And at the frats, and of course I was at Tech. I'd never been to Charlottesville before. And I, some of it fits some people. It doesn't fit everybody. I was like, oh, everybody must go to class dressed in Argyle and like drinking like cappuccinos. There were like a boxing match going on at your frat.
So so I know which one you're talking about. Yeah. That wasn't, it was down the street, but I know which one you're talking about. Yeah. So like, there's shit like that all the time. Yeah. Which is sick. And also the fact that they're like allowed to do that is crazy. But that's kind of what like people think UVA from the outside is like this kind of stuck up, snooty, you know, what you like, what you just said. But there's some like crazy shit that goes on that's just like normal because it's been going on for so long. But no, also I do think to continue a little bit, like the integration of the university into Charlottesville is so like seamless is something that I really like. Because when I lived in Blacksburg, I was kind of surprised how separate Blacksburg and Tech were. Really? Like, I thought that it was kind of like, here is Virginia Tech, and then like Blacksburg is around.
Okay. Yeah, the suburbs, and once you get probably 8 minutes away from campus, I would argue, look, obviously Blacksburg is a college town, but when you get 8 minutes away from campus, you'd be like, oh, this is just a regular town in Southwest Virginia.
Right.
Like it's not
Charlottesville, like you can't really go anywhere without knowing UVA is there, which I found really cool. Like it's like that's like the thing in town. Where I thought kind of Blacksburg was like you're either at Virginia Tech or you're in Blacksburg. I didn't feel like there was too much.
Well, we got to get you down there in the fall. We got to get you down there in the fall because I think I think it's a little bit different. Look, Blacksburg in the summer, it's kind of just you got a bunch of townies and some athletes.
It was pretty dead, I will say.
To your point though, what I really like about UVA is you get away with we're a college town and we're also a city. Like if you go to I'll pick an example. Tuscaloosa. If you're by campus, you're like, this is a huge campus. You go like 8 minutes away, you're like, is this Hackensack, New Jersey? Are we in like Patterson, New Jersey? Exactly. Like this looks horrible. Yeah. And a lot of schools that are aligned with cities, Baton Rouge is another example at LSU. Like there's the college area, and then you kind of end up in like this not awesome city. Athens, Georgia is similar. So no, you guys get away with that in a way that I think the only comp I can think of is Knoxville, where Knoxville does a really good job tying into being a college town in a city. So that's a good, that's
There's
a good
like
take.
Ann Arbor, I would add, like you could like, it's a place where you'd like be so down to like just live.
Right.
Even if you weren't affiliated with the school like at all, you would just like pick up shop, move your family there, and you have a great time. Like that's why, Charlottesville for me was one of the craziest places to live, was because it was just like, even if you weren't a UVA person, like you'd have a fantastic experience.
I had a list. I mean, look, things that are awesome about Charlottesville. I mean, look at me on my Virginia Tech podcast talking about awesome.
Yeah, right.
I mean, look, Jack Brown's is amazing. I've heard some rumblings that Jack Brown's is making its way. Roback, who I absolutely love, Charlottesville brand. Boylan Heights is great. I was at Boylan Heights when I watched that college game day game. And then a couple other ones. Roots is actually a Charlottesville company. Christian's Pizza is phenomenal. And as a New Jersey guy, Bodo's probably the best bagels that you're going to get in all of
the best.
Like not really much of
you just went down the corner, just read off all the establishments down in the corner. It's a great. I mean, listen, it's a great little like strip. Everything you possibly need is on that little road. So
So last three from Skylar Letchworth. Who is your favorite Virginia Tech? He says football, but let's do any sport player of all time, or at least one that you have respect for.
Okay. And I have a least favorite as well, if I can add.
Okay. Yeah, please do.
I have definitely a least favorite. Let me think. I mean, I was a Hendon Hooker guy for sure, especially after he went to Tennessee, like watching him.
Can we say a guy that graduated from Tech or that finished his career at Tech? Love Hendon Hooker. That's not anti-Hendon Hooker. I just feel like that's a bit of a cop-out.
Sure. And he came into the office, I think it was maybe after before the Tennessee season where he beat Alabama.
Okay.
We came in because we have a Tennessee guy, Big T, who he has a podcast with Arian Foster. So he came in with Hendon, and I think Cedric Tillman was the other guy that came in. But I kind of, joked with Hendon a little bit about the 2019 game. Yeah. Thanked him for his service and everything. And no, so I was a big fan of his. I do think I like Trey Turner. I was a big fan of just kind of watching him play. Like he was a fucking force. Like I was, like fuck. He was cool. I like what's that fucking guy? The basketball guy, not the white point guard, but the white power forward. I'm forgetting his name.
Grant Basile.
No, it was
not Hunter Couture.
No, the other one. I'm looking. It's like with a Z or something.
Z.
Let me see. Hold on. I'm gonna get
Zach Leday.
I'm looking it up. Hold on. Before I fumble this name, I was he was on the roster this year. I watched him play this year. Let me see.
White power forward this year.
Big guy.
Robbie Beeran.
Let me see. Let me look it up before I fuck this up. Let's see.
You're going to say it and I'm going to be mad at myself.
Not Hunter Couture, but the other guy. Who am I thinking of? Oh, no. Sorry, not powerful. Yeah, Sean Padula.
Sean, okay. Yeah. Ole Miss guy now. So he has
Sean
that in
Padula.
common with you. He's probably got the whole outfit ready to go. You
can let me try and think of a guy that graduated then. God damn. Fuck. I mean, can I give you my least favorite while I think?
Sure.
The least favorite came to mind almost immediately. Where this fucking guy, and he did graduate from Virginia Tech. Fucking Dax Holyfield.
I knew you were going to say
That motherfucker, man. I have never hated an athlete more in my life. And again, I believe that if he was a Virginia guy, I would love him to death.
He's like it.
He's just one of those guys.
Marcus Smart falls into this category. Pat
Mhm.
Narduzzi falls into this category. It's guys that like, oh my God, if he's not on your team, you absolutely hate him. But if he's your guy, you love him to death.
Like I would love a guy like Dax Holyfield, but like holy shit, did I hate that motherfucking guy?
You need to you need. Well, maybe you won't, but he's got a crazy story. Whenever he left, he's now working in pit crews for I think Hamrick Motorsports. He's doing something with NASCAR. But yeah, no, I would hate him if he wasn't on my team for sure, without a doubt about it.
Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But also, like, I mean, listen, like the football team this year, like Kyron Drones is great.
Yeah.
Like I think he's very good. I really am hoping that like this year's game is like good.
Means something. Yeah.
Because like, you guys are gonna be good. So if, like we gotta keep up this year because it would really suck to go into that game with you guys at like 9-2 and us at like 2-8.
Well, what would be cool? What would be cool? I'm not hoping for this. I hope we win every game. But what would be cool is if there's a trip to a New Year's Eve game or a trip to the ACC title on the line for us and like bowl eligibility for you guys. Or
where it like means something.
Yeah.
Listen, you guys could be good enough to make the playoff this year, which is like crazy to say.
I think we have a very, you say this every single year where you say, hey, I mean, the schedule, I don't see a loss. I mean, you don't have North Carolina State, who's going to be really good this year. You don't have North Carolina. You don't play Florida State. You got Clemson at home. So it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out.
And you got 12 spots.
And there's 12 spots.
You got 12 spots.
Last two, Leo and Net. Jake, what do you think of the UVA fans that only watch your team if they are good?
Not a fan, obviously. I mean, I feel like that's the same for every school, right? Where it's like, what's like, why? Like, my thing is like, if you're gonna do that, like, you can't be sad or upset when they lose,
right?
Where it's kind of like, if you want to casually watch a university play a sport, like that's fine, sure, but like then you can't be pissed or have opinions when things aren't going that well.
Yep.
Like my least favorite people are the basketball fans that show up for conference play, haven't really watched, and then when they lose to like Boston College for some fucking reason, they're like, all right, like fire Tony Bennett. It's like, all right, well, like what the fuck are we like? What's even the point then? What are you doing here?
The fire Tony Bennett dialogue was completely out of hand. I'm a big fan. I don't know if you know Trey Kelleher. He writes for Streak the Lawn. He's a great dude. Yeah. And we were talking about, it was just one of the craziest things that I saw. You even had Tech fans that were chiming in on UVA fans. They're like, you're literally crazy. Like Tony Bennett is awesome. Like, I can't believe that you would.
I don't think people kind of understand that like there's nowhere else to go but down.
Right.
Like, it's not like you're going to get someone better. He's a top 3 current college basketball coach. Like there's no one else that is going to be an improvement. And
not to mention too, like people don't really make this parallel. And again, people will probably get angry at this parallel. The way that Tony Bennett wins basketball games is very similar to how Coach Beamer won football games. Like, we're not going to score 60 or 70 points like Oregon. Right. We're going to go out and we're going to play defense, and we're going to wait for you to make a mistake, and you're going to make a mistake, and we're going to capitalize on it. Right. And that style of play, of course, leaves you open to embarrassments, like just like UVA lost in the first round, Virginia Tech lost to JMU because, whatever. But it's just a completely different style than everybody else plays. And that opens up some opportunities for weird stuff to happen. But more times than not, it's going to work out. And it's different than what everybody else is doing. So,
I mean, listen, this year with Tony Bennett, like the team was like, whatever. It was a fine constructed roster. But like, if you were third in the ACC, you make the tournament, and like you're one weird play away from basically playing for an ACC conference or tournament title. Right. Like, that's a great year. A lot of schools would kill for that year. And I mean, our spoiled fan base, because we won a national championship 5 years ago, is like not good enough. Like it does get a little tiresome at times.
It's also frustrating being like, I know how hard it is to get to Tech. Like when I went to 5 games when I lived in San Diego. I went to a ton of games when I lived in Atlanta, a ton of games when I lived in New Jersey. Like, it's not easy to get to Blacksburg. If you live in Northern Virginia, if you live in Richmond, getting to Charlottesville is not like it's not like a tall task. Like if there's like, it's not a
Yeah.
difficult thing to do. You're not flying into Roanoke Regional Airport. So yeah, it's easy. Get on board. I'm begging you guys, get on board. Follow Jake, follow him, and it's going to be a lot more fun. Last one from Daddy Pry, and I'm actually going to eliminate the 2019 win. What is your favorite win against Virginia Tech in any sport? You can't say 2019.
Wow. All right. Well, I mean, that kind of eliminates football just kind of off the bat. I think the Kihei Clark 3 to win in Castle, probably without the football team, like that's probably number one.
It's so nuts. It's so nuts that he was on that team and graduated this year.
Right. Like
that's like 6 years ago.
That's probably number one.
Uh-huh.
I mean, again, like the other sports, like I don't really know how many times are like our record against you guys in baseball. There's no lacrosse team. So yeah, I mean, it's probably one of those basketball wins. I would probably say the Kihei 3 is probably the best one, just kind of how the way it ended. The basketball stuff is so weird. I know we talked about it a little bit. Like the fact that we're like even is crazy. Also, this year when we played you guys at your place, I told every single person I knew, like Virginia Tech will win this game by 40 points.
I could not. So I was extremely confident going into the game because look, I think it's comparing apples to oranges, but it's really funny. So one of the worst things that Coach Young did for his career was win the ACC 2 years in, and the like expectations for, I'm trying to be careful with my words here. The expectation of the program compared to the resources available and the historical reference of where Virginia Tech has sat for its entire existence. You are nestled in between Wake Forest, North Carolina State, Virginia, Maryland, all of these schools. You win an ACC title. And I think if you take a holistic view of Coach Young's career, he has punched above his weight class for years and years and years. But going into that game, like Tech has always done an amazing job. And if you go ahead and you listen, like Tony Bennett cannot say more positive things about Mike Young, and Mike Young can't say more positive things about Tony Bennett, but that was a weird game. We kind of viewed that as, hey, we just knocked UVA out of the tournament and maybe we can get hot here towards the end. Neither of those ended up coming true, but I wish you had
knocked us out.
It is such a fun rivalry because I've been to it at, I believe I ran into Ralph Sampson at the UVA Virginia Tech game this past fall that was in Charlottesville. The year before that, Steph Curry was there with a couple of other guys. And then at Virginia Tech, I know we've had Del Curry there. Nobody of that stature, but it's always sold out and it's always awesome. So I love that rivalry, but yeah, that was peculiar. We got to get one in Charlottesville. We haven't beaten you guys in Charlottesville in forever.
But like, again, we don't really win at your place. Like it's very much like like we'll win at home and you'll win at home. And then like, that'll be that. Yep. It's a very weird basketball rivalry. Cause like we should win more than you guys win. We don't.
Last one that I have, like your hate power rankings. How much do you hate Virginia Tech compared to how much you hate North Carolina? Cause again, like, it's an in-state rivalry, and again, I'm from New Jersey, so everybody throws that at me. They're like, you're from New Jersey, you don't get it. Like, a lot of times I'll get, well, when I went to high school in Virginia, all these people said I was dumb because I was going to Virginia Tech. I was like, one, that shouldn't really bother you a whole lot. And two, like, objectively speaking, North Carolina and Virginia have much more of a common thread to make them a rival than we do with UVA.
I think it would vary by sport, where it's like, Virginia Tech for me is number one in football, like especially because of how dominant you guys have been against us in the past 2 decades. Like, I would nothing more than to beat you every year.
Yep.
Like, if you said you won't beat UNC for the next 10 years, but you'll beat Virginia Tech once, like, deal. I'll take that deal every time. Like, I feel like that game means way less to me personally than the Tech game does. And also, like, we've been pretty successful against UNC in football the past 5-10 years, where they hadn't won. I mean, they just beat us a year ago. Like, we beat them this year. They were top 10 team.
Yep.
Like, we are very somewhat, for some reason, whatever. And that's a knock on Drake May. That's bad news for him in the NFL. That's kind of my one rule is if you lose to UVA in football, you can't be a good NFL quarterback. That was the Daniel Jones method. And that turned out to be correct as well. So yeah, I'd probably put Virginia Tech at 1 in football. and then UNC. I would put Duke at 1 in basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody at UVA hates Duke more than everybody else. Then it's probably UNC. Then it's probably Tech. And a lot of people still hang on to the Maryland rivalry, but we don't really play them too much.
I wish you did. It was a fun rivalry.
Me too, honestly. Because like even the football game this year is like very fun against Maryland. I think a lot of older UVA fans are really into the Maryland rivalry. And then I guess for other sports like lacrosse, like the ACC is the ACC.
Yep.
Like everybody kind of hates everybody a little bit. But like when Duke is good, like we hate Duke the most. It's really a Duke. Like it's the 4, which is like Duke, UVA, Virginia Tech, UNC.
Yep. 2
Virginias, the 2 North Carolinas. I would feel so bad to be like an NC State fan, to be honest. That sounds
because nobody really cares.
Nobody really cares. Even UNC is like, we don't really care about you guys. Like we got Duke.
Yeah, it's tough, and I think there are a lot of I think North Carolina State would be a really good rival if the ACC wanted to go all in on making that game more important and playing it every year. I think it would matter a lot because there are a lot of parallels. Right.
But like UNC has their actual rival, which is Duke, and they kind of have the secondary little brother guy, which is NC State. I am a little worried about JMU. I'll be honest. I mean,
the amount of money that they're pouring into sports, like
I'm a little worried.
My buddy Bryce has been talking about this for years, and he says, everybody's very backhanded against JMU. Everybody talks about JMU like they're this redheaded stepchild. They're on the side of a highway. At the end of the day, if they were to, quote unquote, basically wake up and end up in a conference and get the funding that they needed to get to compete, they're absolutely going to compete. Like that's, they have a ton of Liberty the same way. Liberty's exactly the same way. If you find a way to tie in all of the puppy mill funding that they have from the thousands of degrees that they print every single year and they start pouring it into football, I mean, they may not play everybody every year, but people are talking about them being a playoff team. So look, Virginia has a lot of programs outside of Virginia and Virginia Tech that have an opportunity that, it's a little bit of untapped potential or unrealized potential after falling off. So we'll see what happens. I can't agree with you more on the JMU point, but Jake, it's been a pleasure. I'm sure.
I have one final bone to pick with you guys, by the way, before
we go for it.
So this is back to 2019. Okay. And the only thing I have to say is because of the way that it was gone about, but Sons of Saturday put out a hype video to the tune of the Avengers. Now it came out. I had also been working on one different sort of idea, different trailer thing, but I put mine out like a day later on the schedule that I had. Now, the only issue that I had was the idea that I somehow copied the video that you guys had made. Now, I'm not sure how much of a video editor you are.
0.
So if it was like, okay, yours is worse or this one stinks, ours is good, that's fine. But the idea that you guys had, I'm not entirely sure who was doing it, that I somehow woke up that night in the middle of the night in a cold sweat and put together a video that took like 12 hours to make in the span of 4 hours to then drop, I found either really complimentary or a little insulting at the level of what it was. That was the only gripe that I had Jake, I think it was more of a, this one sucked versus why would you copy us type thing.
So I know, first of all, it was a great video. Grayson Wimbish, who used to be one of the folks on the podcast, he made it. I don't know if he was talking about that or if it was something that the fan base ran with, but that is super annoying being in a situation like this. Like there have been several times where there's a t-shirt we wanted to put out or a video we wanted to put out or something, and then somebody else has like the exact same idea and runs with it. But Jake, I will be the first to say that message did not come from me. And I do not believe that you were up in a cold sweat copying Avengers.
That's been on my brain for like 5 years. Was like, they really think that I like did that in one night. Like that's A, either kind of cool or like B, like they don't know what they're doing,
Yep. Well, Jake, it's been a blast. We got to get you if you have an open invite, UVA, Virginia Tech, last game of the season, get down to Blacksburg. We'll have a great time. Please keep up the chirps, and we'll do this again sometime soon, man. I appreciate it.
Hopefully after a UVA win over Thanksgiving weekend this year.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not. We'll talk to you soon, man.
All right.